Okay, so you got Karuna, which is compassion. It means compassion, and it is one of the four sublime states that the Buddhists have: compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And we're going to look at Karuna and Metta as well. Okay, which is loving kindness, because essentially they go hand in hand. And so metta is loving kindness, showing benevolent, kind attitude towards other people. So they both sound very similar. If I explain really quickly the main difference between the two, metta and karuna might seem like the same thing, in fact, a little different. One thing about it is that metta is a general desire to want people to be happy, attitude of warmth and kindness that Buddha tried to cultivate to all people. Right, karuna arises when metta comes into contact with a specific person who is suffering. So metta is seen as like the generalization. I want to be compassionate and understanding to all people in the world, all people in my society, and karuna is a very specific when you specific person that comes your way, a specific situation. So that's really the main difference between the two. And now, so the importance of karuna is feeling concern for the suffering of other people. And people say that the Buddha showed karuna at the very beginning. So when he was enlightened, he did debate whether to teach other people, but he could see there was so much suffering going on in the world that out of compassion, he started to teach his disciples how to achieve enlightenment. And this compassion is called karuna. Um, and it's not just recognized when other people are suffering, but again, another good thing about Buddhism, it's also recognizing when you are suffering as well. And so it's about being compassionate towards yourself. So there's none of this martyr complex. There's none of this kind of idea that you must be punishing yourself and, or you're just working so hard that you're trying to meet the needs of everybody else, but you yourself are suffering. That is not karuna. If you are neglecting yourself, then you are not being compassionate. So it is about being kind and compassionate towards yourself as well as towards other people. And I think that's a really good thing, a really nice thing in today's society for us to think about. The Dalai Lama in Tibet, he says this: I believe that at every level of society, the key to a happier, more successful world is the growth of compassion. We all share an identical need for love, and on the basis of this commonality, it is possible to feel that anybody we meet, in whatever circumstances, is a brother or sister. If we are to protect this home of ours, each of us needs to experience a vivid sense of universal compassion. Now, there's a lot to unpick there, isn't there? I mean, from that quite clearly, we are meant to be compassionate to all people around the world and treating this brother or sister. I mean, that's a massive statement in terms of attacking racism and nationalism. It doesn't matter. We live on one planet, and because we live on one planet, we need to be compassionate towards each other so that we can survive on this one planet and help make this world a better place and to protect this home of ours. That is only going to happen through compassion to each other and to ourselves. And you may agree or disagree with that. If you disagree with that, you need to be able to explain why you disagree with that. Because as soon as you bring in this whole idea that we live on one planet, um, and we want to be a successful world, and we need to protect this whole world, then it becomes a very powerful argument that we showing compassion means that we are working together, we are supporting each other. And if I'm showing compassion to you, I'm showing compassion to myself, and then you're showing compassion to me, the world is meant to be a better place rather than war, bitterness, anger, and violence would be the alternatives, is what they would say. So it is an important quality for all Buddhists to develop, and I think that's an important point to develop, is that for a lot of us these things don't necessarily come naturally, and so there are things that we have to think about and think, actually, I wasn't compassionate then. How can I be compassionate if I come across a similar situation in the future, and to evaluate what we did and change our behavior. And again, that's it. I heard sometimes, well, this is someone who's done something bad. They said, well, this is the way I am, take it or leave it. Really? Um, Actually, that's just an excuse for refusing to accept that you've done something wrong and to accept the consequences of that and to actually change and to become a better person. So Buddhists would disagree with that whole phrase of "I'll just take it or leave it" kind of thing. This is the way I am, because we need to progress and develop and become more compassionate and develop more compassion. So also talk about wisdom and compassion being developed together. So, and they give an example there in the book. You know, you might be incredibly full of wisdom and intelligence in terms of developing, say like nuclear fission, or splitting the atom, in which can give energy and to the world around us. But if it's not used in a compassionate way, then you start creating nuclear bombs. And so wisdom and compassion need to go hand in hand. Really, in fact, once you could argue that you can't be wise unless you are compassionate. Um, if you are not compassionate, but you have a lot of knowledge, then you're not being wise. You can actually end up being really cruel because you don't have that compassion there. So it is important for Buddhists, therefore, to develop the wisdom. It is knowledge enacted in a compassionate way. Now, one Tibetan word is Rokpa, which means help a friend. And what I'd like you to do is just look at Rokpa. It's a charity, it's involved in projects around the world. What sort of things do they do? There's some explanation there about running schools, providing education, helping people out of poverty. So I want you to just Google that and see what Rokpa are doing, and answer some of these questions here and activities here for you to do and make notes. But I want to move on actually to Metta, loving kindness. Remember, Metta is like the overarching loving kindness to all people. Karuna is the more specific. Compassionate to a specific person, a specific situation. Okay, so the importance, now this is, again, we're talking about developing Metta, developing Karuna. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to a lot of us. So what Buddhists talk about, and they give a process in helping people develop Metta, helping people develop kindness, loving kindness. So if you are more Metta, if you cultivate Metta, then you will not be as easily as angered. You're meant to be more caring and more loving, and likely to love unconditionally. And the thing that these are incredibly important. Remember, we go back to karma. These lead to skillful actions, which will enable you to be not suffering as much in this world, but also the idea that in your next life it's going to be better. Okay, so they come with loving kindness meditation. Now it goes with 5 steps, and you go through the same process in meditation, like with samatha. You focus on your breathing, you calm yourself down, and it's about concentration, being in the moment. And then you go through these 5 steps, and it's first of all thinking about yourself. Showing loving. How can you be showing loving kindness to yourself? That's a really positive thing. And then to a good friend, how you can show loving kindness to a good friend. And then someone who's neutral. So we've all got lots of neutral people that we know, maybe neutral friends, where they're not your enemy. You don't hate them. You don't hang out with them either. They're just somebody because you're like thrown together in a classroom or in a sports club whatsoever. And so not necessarily positive or negative. Again, and it's focusing on showing loving kindness. Now, those 3 are vaguely pretty, you might argue, reasonably easy. Showing kindness to a good friend or a neutral person. Some people might struggle with showing kindness to yourself. But where most people struggle with is showing kindness to somebody who's a difficult person, someone you dislike, someone who creates an enormous amount of negative emotion and energy within you. And that is where there's going to be a lot of challenge going on with this loving kindness meditation, with this metta meditation. And that's why it's something you need to develop. It doesn't happen straight away. It doesn't happen the first time you do it. And it might be that there's somebody who is incredibly annoying or incredible negative emotions that you need to do again and again and again. Now, remember, they might generally have done something horrible to you. So this isn't about forgiveness. Okay, it's not about letting somebody off the hook. It's not saying that you shouldn't have justice, but it's actually saying you don't want that person to have any more hold over you through negative emotions. And so those negative emotions are only going to do one thing, and that is destroy your sense of happiness and contentment, and bring suffering to you. It's not going to bring suffering to the other person. So there's a real sense of um, uh, self-managing and self-care in spending time thinking, how can you show loving kindness to the person that you really hate? It doesn't mean you stop meditating and you go up to that person and give them a hug. It's all about maybe changing your mindset. And then the fifth step is all four of these people, and then gradually followed by everybody else in the world. Now, it is difficult. That is difficult. I'm not saying it is easy by any stretch of the imagination, but at least what Buddhists do, they're not just saying be nice to everybody. They're not actually saying that. What they're actually saying is be nice to yourself. Focus on yourself, but be nice, and then work your way out from there. And then the real challenge of being nice to people who are having creating real negative emotions to you, and that's the real challenge, the real world challenge. So now you may agree or disagree with that, but there was a Buddhist saying that if you think of anger and hatred, and you have the analogy of like your house is on fire because it's causing so much damage. It's your house that's on fire. It's your house that's been destroyed. The person that you hate, and okay, they're fine. They're fine. So anger and hatred only destroy you, and in this life and in the next. So it's something that is worth developing to create a better future for yourself. So again, activities there for you to do. Make some notes. Maybe practice. In class we would have practiced some samatha meditation. We tried that, and I would encourage you try it. Take 5-10 minutes. There are different places on the internet where you could just download maybe someone doing samatha meditation and go through it, or you could do it yourself, and go through those steps. Yourself, good friend, neutral person, difficult person, and see how you get on. Clearly, some of us will find it easier than others. Okay, then, that's Karuna and Metta. Remember, Metta, the overarching compassion. Karuna is for compassion in a specific person's situation.